call the meeting to order. All those that can stand, please do so for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
All board members are present.
Okay, for public purpose, public comment, if you look on your chairs or the back of the chairs, you'll see the rules of the road. Members of the public shall have an opportunity under public comment to address the board for up to 3 minutes. The time limit for comments may be reduced at the discretion of the supervisor, depending on the expected number of speakers and remaining agenda items to be addressed within the time left for the meeting under Rule 2.4. which will be announced at the beginning of the public comment. If physically able, persons wishing to make public comment will address the board from the podium over here on my right, your left, and be seated when they are finished speaking. The board may not take action in response to a public comment. At the same meeting, the comment is presented, and individual board members are not required to respond to questions presented during public comment. A board member that believes a public comment or question should be discussed or addressed by the board may have it placed on a future agenda. Okay, so next item is the approval of the agenda. I'd like to make a modification of the description of item 9M, and I'd like to change that to read discussion of proposed ordinance number 461, an ordinance to create and establish a local officials compensation commission and procedure for determining salaries of elected township officials.
From introduced to discussion.
Pardon me?
So you're changing introduced to discuss.
Correct. Okay, entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, consent agenda approval. Do I have a motion to approve?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. A vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth? Yes.
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 Motion carries.
We did, after it's been approved here, could I ask a question about the list of bills, just, or a statement? I was just wondering, because when I was looking through it, I saw our hazmat day and the total that we paid on that. I was wondering how that compared to last year. Do you know offhand, did we do even more, or was it less than
Less.
last year?
Less than
I thought it
last
was
year.
less, okay. All right, thanks.
Yep. It went extremely well, though, even though it was crummy weather.
Yes.
Okay, announcements and information inquiry. Township offices will be closed on Monday, December 24th and Tuesday, December 21st in observance of Christmas holiday. The offices will also be closed on Monday, December 31st and Tuesday, January 1st in observance of the New Year holiday. Okay, at this time, we'll have anybody with public comment. You have 3 minutes to do so. Please come to the podium.
Dennis Raymond, 6039 Fish Lake Road. Last meeting, you had discussed that the owner of Airsoft had a problem with the previous location and that you were planning on letting him use our parks to put his business in there. Well, I received a letter, and I just want to read some of the stuff from this concerned citizen. I expressed concern about liability, his and myself as a neighbor, and the fact that the property wasn't zoned for this and he didn't have township approval. It was at this time he had told me he had gone to school with Rick Hamill, and Rick had told him to just go ahead and do it because you'll just get hassled and if you take it to the township. The very next paragraph, she brought it up again, and he said, and this is your friend from Huff Tree Farm, that Rick Hamill had given his under the table approval for this. So there's 10 pages of So she ended up getting a lawyer, and apparently he turned around and withdrew his application. So now you want to turn around and put it on our parks, which we pay taxes for, and it's our parks, and I don't think you have any approval to do that. But if you do, I will check with my lawyer, and I will see what the situation is, because you're gonna put this on our parks, and you never gave this whole board and the planning commission who received this back in April, never did anything about it until she decided to get an attorney. Then everything got dropped. So all I'm saying is that if you could turn around and do it, I'm gonna be checking, and if I have to, I'll fight it in court. Thank you.
Anybody else, public comment? All
I got a
right.
couple things.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I thought we had very successful tree lighting last week ago, Monday. Yeah, it was cold, but it was fun, and a lot of great turnout. Last night, we had the M59 meeting down at the church, down here off of Livingston Road, and I thought it was very well. They did a nice job, and were very accommodating for questions. And while I was there, I talked to Grant Charlick, who is a builder, and he's been working on the industrial park over behind 59 West, and he's very excited about how things are going over there. And I just want to share that things that we've done, and I think it's moving along very nicely. He was very excited and very optimistic about it. It's going very well over there. So, and we talked a little bit also about the sports complex that's going in by Milford High School. He's been doing some work there too, and he's very excited about that. And so just a lot of good things going on that last week and a half or so. Talking to people. So
Okay.
that's it.
Any other comment? Yes.
No, I think Councilor has his hand up. Go ahead.
Well, I would defer to you folks, but I do have one.
That's okay. I received a letter in my mailbox I just picked up tonight from Bonnie Miles asking for information to be distributed to the board, and I just wondered if that was done. or if
Yes.
It was.
Put it in the boxes.
Okay.
Oh.
It'll be good. Thank you.
Joe had one.
No, I thought you raised your hand, sir.
Oh, referencing Mr. Raymond's comments, at your last meeting, you had a possible lease on the Township Board's agenda for consideration, and you postponed action on that. That lease has been sent to me for review with a request that I write my comments so that you can consider it at your January meeting, so that the Township Board can consider it, not just Mr. Hamel. And so I don't know what letter Mr. Raymond was reading from, but Township Board is the entity that would approve any lease agreement for allowing use of the park.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we're going to call the public comment closed. Pending business, first item, A, adopt proposed ordinance number 460 to amend sections in Article 5 of Chapter 9 of the Code of Ordinances of the Charter Township of Highland to remove, correct, or clarify certain provisions and amend the probationary firefighter and disciplinary procedure provisions. Barry, did you want to discuss that at all, or?
Only if the board has questions. You've introduced it. I understand it was discussed at some length when it was introduced.
We do have one small correction to make on page 2, section 9.121, letter B, item 5. It reads, the extent to which the act was intentional, reckless, or care. And it should be the extent to which the act was intentional, reckless, or careless.
I agree, and that was careless by me in drafting that. If you're inclined to adopt it, I've provided some language for a possible motion that would rectify that type of error.
All right, I'll read that motion. I've got it in front of me here. I move to adopt proposed ordinance number 460, amending sections in Article 5 of Chapter 9 of the Ordinance Code in the same form in which it was introduced on November 14th, 2018, with the last word in Section 9-121B5 changed from care to careless to correct that typographical error.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right. We're gonna have to start going to tabloid size agendas here. Okay, moving on to new business. The first item is a request for Highland Township vacation of Short Street and subsequent reassignment of the land to be attached to adjacent lot number 131, and I think I did see the property owner come in. Mr. Marlowe, are you there somewhere? There he is. You're hiding. In your packet, you'll have seen that there was information came from the county for abandoning a road that was platted years and years ago. It's kind of one of the, just the name of it alone, Short Street, probably indicates that they didn't know what to do with it. And so Mr. Marlowe requested an abandonment, of which he got all of the appropriate signatures from the neighbors. The county said yes. It's up to Highland Township now. It's our job to give our blessing to that process. So I'm going to make a motion that Highland Township allow the vacation of Short Street and subsequent boy, that's a tough word, subsequent reassignment of the land to be attached to adjacent lot number 131. Gary, you have something we should add to that?
Yeah, if I may, I think it was Monday. I sent to each of the board members a resolution that would approve the requested road vacation. And if
Okay,
you were
that's true.
inclined to grant relief, that would be
The best way to do it.
That would be the form I would recommend you do it in.
Then let's do that.
When it comes to these kinds of issues in subdivision plats, the Land Division Act does recognize a local government body's ability to vacate a road so long as, well, it's not within 25 meters of a lake. I don't know if that's the case here or not. I don't think it is. But as far as the second aspect of the request, which is to combine the properties, the resolution does not approve that, and I'd like to explain why. There is a school of thought that a township board resolution alone does not accomplish the vesting of title in the land that was occupied by the road in the lots on either side. Title companies would probably take the position that to actually have the property title transfer would require an action in the Oakland County Circuit Court. So this resolution does as much as I think the township board can do. Provides notice to this gentleman that this may not give him title, and has some other protections for the township, one of which is that if you vacate the road, that he's going to become responsible for it. There is a school of thought that when the road commission abandons a public road, the responsibility for it falls on the township. So that part of the resolution makes it clear that we're going to get out of that obligation as well. And if there's any cost and expense incurred by the township in doing this, that would be the person that made the request responsibility. My suggestion is if you pass the resolution, it's set up to be recordable, because that is a final requirement of the Land Division Act, is that the township clerk record a resolution with the Register of Deeds. And so that's why it was put in this form, as opposed to you approving it and asking me to bring you a resolution at the next meeting. I looked at it and it looked like a no-brainer.
Okay. What's that resolution number? Here it is.
I didn't put a number on it.
I have it here.
The last one on the agenda is 1846.
So we can make it 1847. you have simpler language for a motion, Gary?
Yes, a motion to adopt the resolution approving road vacation provided by the township attorney on December 10th.
All right, I'm gonna reiterate that as the motion.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
So, Mr. Marlowe, your feet have to keep moving. There's more to do.
If I may,
Yes.
my suggestion would be, with this action having been taken, that maybe the first inquiry would be to the county assessing folks to see what their requirements would be for the lot combination that's proposed.
Oh.
Whether they will approve a combination without a court order for title or not.
Okay,
So, I don't know their position on it, I just know what title insurance companies typically say.
so what you wanna do, Tom, is you wanna come into the office, talk with Lisa, talk to our assessor. We'll take the steps from there to see what direction we need to go, and, if need be, we can call, Oakland County and help you head that direction.
Thank you.
A lot of work for such a short street, so.
But it's never been there.
No, they never had a car on it. All right, so, next item is, a public hearing, so, for the use, requiring special approval submitted by applicant Pet World of Highland and property owner Highland Common Shopping Center LLC for a dog daycare and training facility as part of Pet World Retail Pet Store, 744 West Highland, PIN, the ID number 1121-426-0114. So I'm gonna open the public hearing at 6:47. Anybody have any comments? Mr. Burgess, would you like to?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Jurgis. I'm the owner of the plaza and also the owner of the Pet World, you know. And we are located at 744 Highland Road, Highland, Michigan. And approximately 9 years ago, we thought we were going to open up a bigger place. We have all the approvals, but my partners took a different direction. So this time we have Jim and Martha. They're both very professional in this field, and you know, we're planning to open it hopefully soon. And we will have any other maybe approvals that we need. We will be ready for that. So the only thing is we probably end up needing is for the dog daycare. Maybe we're coming for a special permit also.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody have any comments you'd like to make? That was easy. Close the public comment at 6:48. And then I guess what we could do is we can open it up with some, we should do it the right way, which is with a motion, so. I'd like to start that off with a motion to approve the special use permit for Pet World of Highland, 744 West Highland Road, Highland Township, Oakland County, Michigan, parcel number 1121-426-011. But I'd like to add a caveat to that, and
0114.
0114, yeah, okay, there's a typo in that. That'll get corrected.
Well, there's,
No,
one
there's
of
too
those
many
digits
numbers.
is wrong.
The agenda's wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You gotta get rid of one of them.
I'm sorry.
The
Okay.
4 is wrong.
Okay, sorry about that.
011. If you read anything we get put, it's like a newscaster. They quit feeding me this bad news, fake news.
Fake news.
So, my caveat is that I think in item 4, there's recommendations from the planning commission. The first one, A, is no overnight lodging of pets. It doesn't seem to make sense to me to have the daycare but not have the ability to be able to take care of the dogs for a longer period of time. We have a overnight facility just on Livingston Road in Highland. And they are booked solid. We have a huge demand for this type of thing. And it seems like it doesn't make sense to have to come back again when logic for me just says, why not just authorize the overnight lodging of pets? So I would recommend a strike in this motion, item 4A. That's a motion.
Oh,
Question,
Yes.
was overnight lodging of pets part of the request but not approved by the planning commission?
No, we did not request that, actually, with the planning commission.
Do you want to do that?
But
It's a great idea.
it's a great idea since we checked in the area. I've been here also for almost around 4 decades, and then Baby Snifter was the only one we started with here in Highland Township. And now that, after maybe checking more around and making a big survey, we found out we do need overnight if it's necessary. If we can get it now, it's great. If we can, we'll have to apply for it later on.
Yes, Gary.
Is the zoning classification of the property you referenced as allowing this the same as this property? If you know,
You mean for overnight?
is
Are they
Unifor
both
Station
zoned
the
the
same
same?
zoning as?
That was industrial, and it was different over here. So I would say no. Mary Pat, do you have more knowledge on that?
You know, I was absent at that meeting. I was not there for that discussion.
The zoning over there is C2.
I think
Anyways,
so
it's,
far from the neighbors, so many feet.
right, so, and then there's industrial behind it. But it is a parcel that is able to have this type of activity with a special use.
I would
It says that under number 2.
my comment would be, striking the condition is not an issue so long as there's no belief that that allows that. You know, because it's a different zoning classification. We don't know what, if any, conditions were placed on the overnight lodging in connection with the prior case. But taking the condition out for now, since they didn't ask for overnight lodging, that's fine. If they want overnight lodging, they may have to come in and ask for an additional approval, so the case can be analyzed in that context.
And I agree, and if we're gonna take it out, I'd like to at least know why the planning commission put it in there. So if we wanna do that, I'd suggest tabling this till we can get an answer from that, but to strike it without knowing why, if it's not allowed as a special use, then we can't do it anyway, so I'd like to know that too.
I apologize, I didn't come prepared to address
No,
that.
it's not your fault.
Well, if I'm gonna make a recommendation, by striking it, if my intention is actually to make an allocation for it, in other words, to allow for it. If you're gonna have daytime daycare, what's the difference between having them spend the night?
I think that makes perfect sense. My only concern is whether the proper request was made and is looked at. I mean, if they didn't ask for overnight lodging, then your planning staff would not have looked at it to see if that was an issue. And of course, the commissioners would not have, I don't know why they put it in there either, but.
Well, I had a discussion with Beth Corwin, our planning director, and the discussion was, she was surprised because at the last minute they put it in there. And she didn't see any rational reason why it couldn't be overnight, and so that was my recommendation, is I would prefer that if you're gonna do this thing, and you're gonna have a daycare, and you're gonna have a pet store, then you should be able to have something that's gonna allocate more than just daytime. It should be something where people have a place to take their pets, rather than leaving them home alone and defend for themselves like some people do. It gives them an opportunity to have a place that's,
Maybe the incorrect word is day, you know, maybe you should have a doggy care center, which is relevant for day or night. People do take their dogs to kennels.
Well, removing the condition doesn't change what is allowed, which is daycare only. What you're doing is not setting them up to have to get a condition changed later on. They can come in with a clean slate to ask for overnight without also having to change a township board special approval condition. But removing that condition doesn't somehow expand what the special use approval was granted for. That's what was noticed for public hearing at the planning commission. And when it comes to zoning notice requirements, I'm pretty conservative. You can only do what they advertise for.
so removing it though is something that could be done, and then, as he said in his public comment, was
For
that
instance,
he would like to come, he would probably come back for that. I mean, he already made that statement to us
And why
In-
take it out?
in the public comment.
the reason to take it out would be that if they do want to have overnight, all they need is a single approval, and they're not coming in with one strike against them, that they've already accepted a special use condition that says they can't.
But
Because
this
the
does
special
not, this does not give them permission for that then?
does not give them permission, but if you approve the special use permit, the owner has to sign that. And they're bound by that, that's a contract,
Right,
and now they have to convince someone that that contract provision should be removed. In other words, they have two hurdles to clear.
right.
If you take the condition out, they'll only have one hurdle to clear in terms of getting overnight permission.
Then that's
I just
what
want
I'm
to
stick with.
clarify that that wouldn't just automatically allow,
Right. So I'm gonna stick with the remove.
and I think that's fine.
So we have a motion and not a second yet.
I would support that.
He moved and supported. Any other discussion or vote, please?
Mr. Salvia,
Yes,
Yes.
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 yes,
Yes,
motion carries.
Thank you.
you're welcome. Now, is your complex complete? Will this fill it?
It is full, oh, yeah.
All right,
Oh,
that's
that's great.
tremendous.
Thank God for that.
Finally have that, all the way around
Well, make
almost.
sure you bring your pet there too, so.
There you go. All right.
Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that was item C. Item D, request to increase building department coordinator position to full-time.
This is the one I have the correction on. Apparently I had confused the title, and I want to make it clear, we're referring to Mrs. Boster's position as she's administrative assistant, currently part-time.
What are her hours now?
35. Entertain a motion?
I would move to increase the building department. What's her official title? Is it
Administrative assistant.
administrative assistant from 35 hours to full-time?
So 37.5.
And effective January 1st?
Yep.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. McDonald?
No.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, item E, resolution of 18-41, bank depositories for 2019.
This is our annual approval of bank depositories. So the only changes are changes in names of banks, and we've added Old National Bank. We haven't used them before, but we've checked out their ratings through Bauer, and they line up with the other banks, and it's another place to spread our money out, because every once in a while we run into we need another depository.
Where are they at?
They're in Brighton, I believe.
Oh,
Livingston County, walking on the wild side.
Old National, huh?
Yeah.
Where are they at, Judy?
They're in Brighton.
Uh-huh.
That's what I said, Livingston County. Venturing out of Oakland County.
Will this allow us to annex
No. Annex what?
Livingston County?
So
No
is that
thanks,
the-
we don't need that.
Is that the resolution, or do you need a resolution?
I need a resolution, yeah.
I move
Motion.
to approve
Or a mo-
resolution 18-41, the bank depositories for 2019.
Support?
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
You?
Okay, next item F, resolution 18-42, performance resolution for Michigan Department of Transportation. This is one we do every year. It relates to our use of, or potential use of any of the MDOT property, mostly along M59 and at intersections. And it allows the township to be able to mow, maintain, move across, put signage, give permits for signage for events and so on and so forth. It's something we have to do every year, and what it does is gives you all the legalese for them saying that we hold them harmless. So, can I get a motion to approve that?
I would move to approve resolution 18-42, the performance resolution for Michigan Department of Transportation.
Support?
Moved and supported, vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 yes,
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, next item. Hopefully this next item won't turn into a total disaster for our state. Resolution 18-43 to oppose Senate Bill 1188. What's the O for?
I don't know.
There's
office,
a,
office.
Office of Senate? Oh.
Second Senate bill.
do they have the updated version?
Right, here's, we passed out an edited version that Gary sent.
Okay, I'm gonna read this resolution. I'll give you, the people that are here to understand what's going on. An individual in our state government decided that, who comes from the Upper Peninsula, decided that it was intelligent to try and take away from local governments the ability to be able to kind of put some restrictions on how we treat our trees. And the rationale behind it is that there's a proposed mine in this district, this individual's district, and of course the mine is going to require them to strip the land, and so the local community, in order to sort of put up some back front to it, or backlash, decided to try and use their ordinances to prevent them from being able to just clear cut. So this individual decided to take it to the Senate, and they passed this bill. And so it's going to the House. It may pass there too. And the thing is what it does is it takes away local controls. It allows for, if somebody came into Highland and decided that there was this big, beautiful wooded area that instead of trying to be able to maintain our canopy, so on and so forth, that we'd have a hard time telling a developer that they couldn't just clear cut it, with the exclusion of what are called significant trees. I think there's another term for it, but it's really a gross misuse of our government's time, and these are things that really should be local control, and it's another usurping of that. So I'll read the resolution, and every supervisor that I'm familiar with has also taken this to their boards. So whereas the Charter Township of Highland is committed to preserving, growing, and maintaining its tree canopy for the many health, environmental, and economic benefits trees provide. And whereas on November 18th, 2010, the Township Board has adopted, we haven't adopted yet till we make the final statement. It's
That's
current.
in reference to your ordinance.
Right. Adopted its current zoning ordinance that includes natural features, preservation regulations in Article 15 and landscaping regulations, including preservation of existing trees in Article 12, codifying the township's commitment by directing developers to protect high-quality natural resources such as mature trees to the greatest extent possible. And whereas a robust tree canopy cools the temperatures of rooftops and hard road surfaces, saves residents money on home cooling in the summer months, and whereas trees and vegetation increase property values and enhance the visual aesthetic of a community, contributing to the ability to attract and maintain residents, and whereas the township's dense network of trees contributes greatly to absorbing stormwater runoff, reducing the burden on sewer systems, and reducing the risk of flooding, and whereas natural features ordinances like Highlands provide predictability to developers and investors who understand at the start of the site design process what the township expects. And whereas, as introduced on November 8th, 2018, and already passed by the State Senate on November 29th, 2018, Senate Bill 1188 would enact the Vegetation Removal Preemption Act to prohibit local governments from adopting and enforcing tree and vegetation protection ordinances and regulations. And whereas SB 1188 is yet another attempt to preempt local control, to undermine local government's ability to address matters of concern to their residents, and whereas SB 1188 would prevent Highland Township from enforcing its current natural features preservation and landscaping tree preservation zoning ordinance regulations, and prohibit efforts to protect our tree canopy via sound public policy. And whereas SB 1188 is in direct conflict with good policy development and does not account for the well-researched, established, and recognized benefits of trees and vegetation. It is therefore resolved that the Charter Township of Highland opposes Senate Bill 1188 and strongly encourages the township's representatives in the State House of Representatives and Senate to protect the quality of life, health, and property values of our residents, as well as the autonomy of local governments, by strongly opposing and voting against this ill-conceived bill. So, this is just one of those examples of lame duck legislation and how things can get railroaded through. So it is definitely ill-conceived. So anybody like to make a motion to approve the proposal?
I move to approve Resolution 18-43 to oppose Senate Bill 1188.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next item, Resolution 18-44, Highland Township fee schedule for 2019.
And this is the other handout at the table here with a couple small changes to page 5.
So the big difference in this from our previous is that we now are engaging in inspection fees for fire and fire-related situations. And our fire marshal, Sean, has, I think, done a great job of investigating other communities around our area and to verify that the numbers that are in here are realistic and fair. And these fees, of course, are allocated towards the fire department because they'd be the ones that would be, they use firefighters to help go out and do the process. So, anybody have any questions on that?
So you're not changing any fees for anything else, you're just adding the?
Right.
Okay.
like to make a motion?
I move that we pass resolution 18-44 for the Highland Township fee schedule for 2019.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
Sean, good job on that. Appreciate it. Next item, I is the purchase of a grass rig skid unit for the fire department. In your packet, there's some pictures of, and pardon me for not having it up on the screen, but it's one of those things, we're trying something new tonight and the screen wasn't one of them. So, Chief, would you like to describe that to the public and the board, what we're talking about?
We have 3 grass rigs for grass fire fighting, and 2 of the grass rigs, grass 1 is 2008, but it's still in good running order. But the skid pack that we use that holds the water and the hose was used when we bought it from a fire department up north, and it's rotting and not gonna make too many more years. So we need a new skid pack for grass 1, and grass 3 is a 2003 chassis pickup that is still in good running order, but that unit has a pack, or not a skid pack actually. It was something that the firefighters made up about 10 years ago with just a tank and a pump, and we've realized that the type of tank that we use is really not that safe because there's no baffles in it, so when you go around a corner, the tank and the truck go around a corner also. And in purchasing the 2 skid packs that we are requesting, makes both units a lot safer, and we usually get anywhere from 15 to 20 years out of a skid pack. And if you notice in your packet, and if I go too fast, got questions, please let me know. We would have 3 quotes, and the one company that we would like to go to and get both skid packs purchased from, which makes it a lot easier getting parts or replacement material, have lowered their, or gave us a better quote because we were gonna get 2 from one area. And the other 2 quotes that are in the packet are a lot higher than what we really need. But we definitely need these fire units, these grass fire units with Highland rack and a lot of the open farmland that we have. And we also have a lot of open lots and acreage that with a good wind, we've chased grass fires quite a few miles just to get them stopped. So we need some good 4-wheel drive equipment with good pumps and storage of water. And that's what we're attempting to do. Is there any questions?
So your recommendation, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Mary.
that's what I was gonna
The
ask.
recommendation
Yeah,
is
what
which
is the
company?
recommendation?
The $13,000 one or the?
No. The recommendation we're looking at is our KO
For 29,000?
for 29,000. That's for 2 units. The other 2, you would have to double the other 2 quotes to if we would. It really isn't. advantageous to us to purchase, two different skid packs when, you can order two, and when you have something go wrong, you can, order parts for either one. Mary, did you have a question?
That was my question,
Okay.
which one you were recommending, 'cause
So
it
it's
didn't say.
arcade.
I'm sorry, I didn't go that far because I didn't know that you were gonna
So you
pass
said,
that, but yes.
sorry, so you said RKO was the least expensive
Yes, it is.
at
We're
29,000, and then the next quote, it looks like it's 13,000 for one,
purchasing,
for wildfire truck and equipment sales?
yes, we already have one skid pack from them that, is on our Jeep. And, it's useful, but there's problems that we've got in it. Also, the other two quotes do not have a separate tank for foam. We have realized that putting out grass fires using water and foam, when you go across and fight the fire, the foam soaks in and puts fire out and keeps it out. Where if you just use straight water, just like anything else, you put it on hot ground, it starts back up by itself. So when you're fighting the fire, you can have fire start back up behind you. And the foam tank that comes with the RKO, that the other two do not come with foam tanks. And the wildfire truck and equipment sales, we have one of those already, but it's a lot smaller because it goes on a Jeep. We're not that satisfied with, but because we know the company, we got another quote from them. And then the other quote is from a company that we don't know that much about, but they don't have a foam tank that goes with their unit either. So to fit what our needs are, RKO really comes up with the best quote and best use of equipment for us.
What we're getting then, that's a better, for all the stuff that you're getting, it's obviously a better deal, that's what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the additional money is for additional equipment such as the foam tank and et cetera.
We're getting two of them.
Yes, to get a foam tank for the other two quotes, you'd have to add to that price.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I would make a recommendation, a motion to purchase the additional equipment for the department from the RKO quote. Sorry,
For 29,000.
for 29,000.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item. Is, last year, I think it was last year, I'm trying to think if it was maybe last year, when MDOT was planning on, they were supposed to put the road in, or do M59's project, in they should have been doing it this year, and they postponed it, but in that same process, the quotes came back higher for the pathway that we had put $100,000 aside for. That was their request. While there's an increase of $39,750 for us in our local match to accomplish that moving forward because of issues by LaFontaine's. And I don't know if any of you have to actually pay attention to LaFontaine's, but it's a swamp.
Yeah.
So they're going to avoid building a bridge, which would add probably several $100,000 to it. And they have to do some, I guess the term would be hardening of the space that they're gonna use, which would mean guardrails to prevent people from getting run over by somebody that might slip out Lane. But anyways, in your packet, there's a description. I'll read it to you because this is the kind of thing that we get from MDOT. It's called the grant summary. It says the project budget has increased since the CC was issued. I haven't been able to find out what the CC stands for. I even asked that the other night and those guys didn't know.
Construction contract.
Is that what it is?
I say it's
Probably.
construction.
Well, I guessed that, but I mean, it could be anything. So the construction construction estimate has increased by 90,000, and CE and a CE of 42,500 has been added to the overall project cost. Total increase of the budget is $132,500 from $335,000 to $467,500. Federal funds were increased by $92,750 from $235,000 to $327,250. So the local match from Highland increased by $39,750 from $100,000 to $139,750.
It's the conditional commitment.
So CC means conditional commitment.
Use what?
Conditional commitment.
They actually use the word in there. So anyways, what we're asking for here in this is that we approve I'll make the motion that I recommend we approve the $39,750 increase in our local match for a total of $139,750 for the pathway project for Hickory Ridge, from Hickory Ridge Road to Tipsico Lake Road.
And do you want to include the budget amendment in that motion? It's in the packet.
Should we do that separately?
I think either one's fine. Up to you.
And well, I'll add the budget amendment that's also in the packet for an increase of $39,750.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported?
So what happens if we don't approve this? They don't do the pathway?
Correct.
That's an outrageous increase.
It's peanuts in what the cost of the path is.
They have to redo the ground. It's just-
I know, but wouldn't you think they would have noticed that when they did the cost estimate? You know, I mean, this drives me crazy when we do this.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with it's an extremely complicated project, so it doesn't take much to crank dollars up.
This is a nailed down price at this point then.
This would be our commitment.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they won't come back and change anything.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
I did.
Okay, Brian seconded, so a vote please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, next item K. Transportation hiring for drivers. If you read the letter from the Director of Transportation, it should make it pretty clear what we're trying to accomplish here. What's happening is, in this bus program, combining with Walled Lake and having part-time employees and making changes in schedules and that type of thing, plus with the fact that we've lost a driver or two to injuries, it makes it very difficult to go through the hiring process when you have to do a 30-day loop to get back to the board. So this is a request to kind of resolve that. So what we have is a transportation hiring program resolution 18-45. I'll read the resolution so the public knows what we're talking about. The township operates, whereas the township operates a community transportation program, CTP, another acronym, employing part-time drivers to provide the CTA services.
It should be P.
P, we've got an issue there, so. Whereas the application and hiring process in Section 1 of the Township's Employee Personnel Policy Handbook provides that the Township Board makes the final decision as to hiring of employees. Whereas outlined in the CTP Director's December 5th, 2018 request letter to the Board of Trustees having to await Township Board approval to hire a new employee to fill a vacant driver position would impair the CTP's ability to provide its services or require remaining drivers to work more than part-time. And whereas the adoption of this resolution, Township Board has determined to adopt this resolution in response to the CTP Director's request. It is hereby resolved that due to the termination or inability of an existing driver to perform or to maintain CTP existing service levels, the CTP Director, with the approval of the supervisor or in the supervisor's absence, the clerk or treasurer, may hire a new driver subject to ratification by the Township Board at its next regular meeting if all of the following conditions are satisfied. Condition 1, without the hiring, one or more drivers will be required to work more than 29 hours per week, or drivers are not available to perform the work necessary to maintain the existing CTP service levels. 2, the new driver has first been interviewed by the CPT Director in the presence of at least one Township Board member. And 3, the background check and driver selection policy provisions in the handbook have been satisfied. So that's the resolution in a nutshell. Anybody like to make a motion?
I would move to approve resolution regarding transportation and hiring, resolution 18-45.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item is resolution, item I, it's resolution 18-46 to approve Oakland County Sheriff's Office 2019 through 2021 Law Enforcement Services Agreement with the Charter Township of Highland and to authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign the agreement.
Motion to approve.
And you mentioned the resolution number, right?
1846?
Okay, all right, perfect.
Support. Okay.
Okay, we have a vote?
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, this is item 9M, which we changed from an introduction to a discussion. So at this point, discussion is over. Board meeting, what meeting was that? 2 meetings ago?
It was back in October.
October, it was our final budget meeting, I believe. So that might have been November. But,
It was not November, it was
October.
was it October?
it was October when the board took action to change some compensation packages for elected officials.
Right. So anyways, in that conversation, a couple of prior trustees added some public comment, and the question came up about whether we should establish a local officials compensation commission. And so there was a motion, I believe, Mary Pat, you made the motion to move that forward, to request the attorney to write that ordinance. And so in front of you, you have that, should have a copy of that ordinance. And so it's a discussion, so if anybody'd like to kind of take off, or have anything, Gary?
If I could make a few comments that might be of some assistance. This ordinance is patterned after a section of the Charter Township Act. And, I mean, that act says the ordinance shall provide the following. So it's pretty clear cut, everything that has to be in there is in here. Okay? And in terms of the members, the terms, meetings and so forth. So with that in mind, I can point out some things that I tweaked and why I did that if you want, or if you have questions on it, maybe I can do that first. But,
Why don't you point out your tweaks and then we'll.
okay, so, nothing in section 2-26. In section 2-27, you know, the statute says, you know, for the first five, you gotta have 5 members, and the initial appointments are for terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. I think most communities like their terms of appointed people to expire on December 31st. And so in 227B, I said it was a partial 1-year term that ends on the 31st of those 5 years. I don't think that's gonna be an issue with anyone, if that's when you wanna do it. I must confess I haven't paid a lot of attention if you have uniform expiration of terms on your other appointed boards and commissions, but that's something you may wanna talk about. In 227C, the timing of the appointments, this is what the statute says. The first member is appointed not more than 30 days after the ordinance takes effect. That can be a fairly short time frame, in my mind, to find people that have the necessary background and qualifications that understand employment compensation matters. So having said that, if you look on page 3, I threw in here that it would have the ordinance would have an effective date of March 1. So that would be a deferred effective date. So if the board were to adopt this, you've got the 30 days from when it takes effect, and you've got the gap between adoption and the effective date to allow a little more time to find the candidates. You don't have to do that, but that's in there for your consideration. In 228A, the statute does not require you to mandate the schedule. And on the assumption that you were to adopt this in early 2019, back up, this commission only meets in odd-numbered years, and it provides, it makes salary determinations for 2-year periods. So in 2019, if you did this, the commission would make salary determinations for all 7 of you, because everyone's got a salary now. And those salaries would be for the 2020 and 2021 calendar / fiscal years. With you not being able to adopt this and have the commission up and running till spring, this calls for the commission to make one determination. MTA puts out lots of resource materials, and they make a comment about this process that I wanted to bring to your attention and propose a possible solution, especially considering that these determinations are for a period of 2 years. If the commission makes a salary determination for someone, that is going to be the salary unless 2/3 of the township board vetoes that or rejects it, is the language of the statute. That's going to be it. So I was trying to conceive of a situation where the commission made a salary determination that the township board felt was too high or too low. They can only do increases. You know, they can't recommend decreases during a term of office. But if the township board, for instance, thought, okay, an increase is warranted here, we think the commission is being too generous, or we think the commission has been too stingy, you would be left with being able to reject it. And that would be the end of the story. This ordinance provides that in 2021 and the following odd number of years, it requires the commission to make an initial determination by April 1st, with the idea that if one or more of those determinations was rejected by the board, there would still be time for the commission to be directed to do a second determination. Now, I'm not aware of any other community that has this kind of a process, but it's the example we talked about. The recommendation is for exorbitant salary increases, and the board doesn't have a level of comfort with that. And so it rejects it, but in its motion to reject it, maybe provides a signal as to a number that it would be more comfortable with. This process, I don't find anything in the statute that says the commission can't make more than one determination in an odd number year, so long as they don't meet more than 15 times to do it. That's another thing that's in the statute. They can't meet for more than 15 days in a odd number calendar year. MTA comments that the proposed salaries, again, it's covering a 2-year period, they can provide for incremental increases. That's in here. Recognizes that the commission can make a determination for incremental increases. So that's kind of like the summary of the statute and the things that I tweaked and the reasons why. And you do not have to do this, you know that. The only thing you did in October was you asked me to bring you an ordinance for consideration.
So that's kind of something I wanted to kind of, when the discussion was made with the 2 former trustees, I had no idea personally what was involved in the compensation commission and I think the level of extra stuff that has to be applied. And I think one of the interesting parts is that those individuals are initially appointed or chosen by the supervisor with the approval of the board. So what happens is I'm going to go back to the Township Board resolution referendum versus the Salary Compensation Commission. And I'm going to read this out of the MTA guidebook that we have. So, being a charter township, we have 2 choices, not 3. General Township has 3 possibilities. So the 2 choices are Township Board resolution referendum or the Salary Compensation Commission, which is the document we're looking at. So the Township Board resolution referendum. In townships that have not passed a resolution to hold an annual meeting, which we're not required to by law, which was actually eliminated in 1988, that requirement. To hold an annual meeting, the Township Board may set the salaries of township officials by resolution. It is the opinion of this author and Attorney General, opinion 6422 of 1987, that the Township Board should adopt a separate resolution for each official. The approval of the budget does not constitute a salary resolution. And I think if anybody paid attention to the way we handled it, we did each individual separately when we did the budget. We talked about the salary, and they were separate from the budget. The board establishes these board established salaries are subject to a referendum only if a petition requesting a referendum is signed by 10% of the qualified electors of the township and filed within 30 days following the township board's vote on the salaries. If a salary resolution is not approved at the referendum election, the official salary reverts to the salary for that office in effect before the township board adopted the resolution. The salary is adjusted where necessary as of the date the Board of Canvassers certifies the election results. So the way that we've been doing it for ever, since 1982 at least, when we supposedly became a charter township, falls underneath this category. I don't know that we actually did resolutions. A motion is essentially a resolution, is it not, Gary? Or?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, the idea in the statute, in that you have the Charter Township Act, and it borrows from the General Law Township Act, which is where you find the procedure that's summarized in the MTA Red Book of Township Board establishing the salaries and then there being a right of referendum on those.
So what I'm getting at here is that each of us has taken the impetus to go out and knock on doors and get people to believe that I'm hoping they're believing we're honest individuals, and that we're going to do the right thing in the decisions that we make here at the board. And when you throw this commission thing in on a level where we're at, which is pretty small, we're a small community, people know each other, you start to get into a community that would be much larger, a lot more population, harder to know who you're actually voting for, so on and so forth, then that might be a scenario where I think this commission could be adapted to it. But the public has that option to say, whoa, wait a second, those salaries sound pretty exorbitant, so we're going to call for a referendum. Now, it's difficult, but I think that what would be the indicator there is that if you're going to have a referendum called because of salaries, you're probably going to have a recall or something happening prior to that because somebody or a board has gone rogue. And I can't say that this board has ever even remotely come close to being able to use the term rogue for any purpose. And so my opinion is that this is just another potential layer to pile on top of things that are already day-to-day operations or duties. Somebody's going to have to pay real close attention to the appointment of new people on an annual basis because of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 deal. It opens doors for stacking the deck, if you wanted to put it that way, where we're sitting here in front of not only a camera and the public, but we're sitting here and we have to make those decisions publicly. What are we paying ourselves? And I think if it's ridiculous or exorbitant, we'd have been told tenfold that that was the case. And so my opinion is I think we're fine with what we have already. So anybody else have a comment on that?
Well, as far as the appointment, I mean, none of that language could be changed? Where, you're saying that it's appointed by the supervisor, I mean?
Oh, it has to be appointed by the supervisor,
Okay.
subject to board approval.
Okay.
That's mandatory.
Okay.
The number of members is mandatory. The length of the terms and the initial staggering of the terms is mandatory. There's very little in this ordinance that's not. I'm sure I touched on the things where I thought I identified some flexibility or tweaking, but.
I do think that it sounds like a lot of work has to be put into this. One of the reasons that we talked about it was we just wanted to be transparent with the public, and that was why that we even discussed this in the first place.
And I think the discussion of it's transparency in its own right. I mean, it's not to try and cover something up, but I don't know that commission is going to make it easier to be more transparent.
Mm-hmm.
No, but we as a board, even before your time, talked about doing this, and I think it's a good thing to do. I think a salary commission is a good thing because it's always a hard thing to set your own pay, and that's a great way. If you do a good cross-section of the community, you'll get a good feel for how the public feels about that and what they really think your value is as far as your salary for all of us. And I'd like to see us go ahead with this. It's been a long time coming.
Ironically, this is a discussion on the Michigan Township website right now. I don't know if anybody else has seen that. I mean, I've never seen it before on there, and there's only two townships that responded to it. I copied this and put it on there and said, this is what we're discussing at our board this week, and in the hopes that there'd be some kind of response. The only response on there that of one township out of I don't know how many in the state was the commission came back with salaries that were too high. And I just went, what?
But then you'll know.
So the board was totally uncomfortable with implementing what that commission's recommendations were. To me, it just seems like a big circle, and ultimately, the responsibility comes back to the board. And it started with a member of the board, has to be approved by the board. I mean, it feels like another layer, and, I feel like we're totally transparent already when we completely vote on our own salaries as a separate issue as part of the budget. It's perfectly clear to the public what we're being paid.
It's also 7 different people voting for one individual's salary.
Exactly.
So it's not one individual voting themselves a raise.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is if you look at the corporate world, the board of directors votes themselves raises, they vote everybody else raises, and they have to have the responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility to see that the monies are there to do so. Private businesses, the owner has to make the decision whether he's gonna take enough money to or not, so we all have to make decisions at some point about our own levels of income, and you even do that when you search for a job. You go look at, I'm not doing that one, it's too low, so I think that it's the thing that Mr. Dittmar kind of pointed out was that he felt that we should be doing this, a chunk of this out of the good of our heart. And I'm not going to say that you shouldn't have that in there if you're going to be working for the community, but like I said in that particular meeting, everything is about money. It's about wages. It's about how you survive in your environment. And to take on a job like this, it certainly isn't something that should be undervalued or underpaid, and it is based on the research that we've done in the past. When you do comparative analysis with other communities on a one-to-one basis, we're low.
And that's been provided for at least the last 6 years.
Yeah, so none of us are doing anything to try and jack that up or crank it up or pad our pockets for sure. So that's why I don't think that this is a necessary, I mean, it's hard enough to find planning commissioners and ZBA board members. That's serious stuff, and so is this commission. It's serious stuff if you're gonna do it. But I think what it does is it adds this another level of what are we actually working for here? Now somebody's gonna have to take the time to play that part of the game, and it takes away from stuff that actually adds more value to our community that could be attended to. And it's on an annual basis, and its timing is such that it involves, somebody's gotta be really paying, it's gotta be clockwork on this thing. You can't screw up on it. So, my opinion. Tammy?
I understand the appeal of taxpayers wanting to have something in place to prevent any future board from just really kind of going off the deep end and doing something, unresponsible with taxpayer money. And, I know this isn't a perfect solution. I would like to offer an alternative idea to develop a policy that says that elected officials' raises will not be more than what is offered to the staff for raises for the year. So that there would be a cap on what could be done for elected officials, and it would sort of assure the residents that, we're gonna be reasonable, we can't go crazy with it.
My only problem with that is if you hold salaries in place for 4 years, then we're kinda.
It would have to
behind
be either, you would have to say, well, it would have to be the cumulative of the 4-year raises, or you could just do annual raises, either way,
Yeah, I'd go for it that way.
yeah.
We did have a discussion that we thought this might soothe a lot of ruffled feathers in the community. I mean, we did talk about this, and it was a good idea to do this, so I'm saying, I don't know why we shouldn't do it. And if we can't get people to make a commission, then we cancel it. But I think this is one way to take the edge off and let the commission go forward. We had a serious discussion on this last time, so saying that we shouldn't do it is, kind of goes against what we talked about before, so.
Well, my opinion on that is, I thought I saw two birds that had ruffled feathers. And that was it.
was gonna say
And
the
I've
same
heard
thing with all due
nothing in
respect.
6 years of any of us, from anybody, that said, you guys are paid too much.
I've never
You're
heard that.
raising your salaries. Never heard it, except from two
Two
people.
people.
Yeah, I understand.
And they were two people that were on the previous board that had a different opinion of how we should how any of us should be paid.
Well, again, my comments are that we talked about it already
Right.
to engage into this, and maybe if we didn't want to engage into this, we should have talked about it. Brought it up. I mean,
Well, what we did is we said, Gary, would you write us an ordinance so that we can
So
look
we
at the
know what we're
ordinance
looking at, yeah.
and make a decision, is this the route we want to go? And I think that was even part of Gary's words, I'll write something, you may or may not go for it.
I have known about this provision forever. I've been the Charter Township attorney for a long, long time. I have not represented any Charter Township that has gone down this path. Hence, I've never really studied this particular section of the statute. When I did, I was surprised to see that it was is an every other year process,
Right.
that the recommendation was for salaries for a 2-year period, and that it was a take it or leave it proposition. And that's why I interjected the idea of possibly having 2 determinations once this was up and running, because that's a pretty severe consequence. If a board member's salary was set 2 years ago, and now we get into an odd number year, and everybody in the room thinks there should be some increase, but it's not the number the commission comes up with, so the board rejects it, again, because they're too high, for instance. The board rejects it, you're stuck with that salary for a total of 4 years. And I just was surprised to see that was how the legislature put this together. It didn't seem to have much flexibility to it.
I have a question, I might have missed something here, but these officials that you would appoint to these positions to oversee this, are they gonna be getting paid as well?
No.
They get
Okay.
paid their
So
expenses.
they're just
of doing
appointed,
the
they're
job.
volunteering? Okay, all right. I just-
It's mostly the expenses for doing your job, I don't know what that would be.
Undefined in the statute, but that's what they get.
Mileage on the house
You know,
would be-
mileage for driving to and from the meeting,
Only thing I was going with that is if they're gonna be paid and then we're arguing about salaries, aren't you ultimately gonna be paying more anyways? That's kinda what I was
Right.
wondering, you know.
yeah, that wouldn't make a lot of
Exactly.
sense.
I mean, most of the commission members of our various little boards do get per meeting pay. You know,
But it's specific in this that they aren't.
They get, what is the language? Entitled to actual and necessary expenses incurred in the performance of official duties. And I added in amounts approved by the township board. I forgot to tell you about that one, but.
Technically, they could seek legal counsel.
Plus the headache of appointments.
Exactly.
So, mileage, I suppose, would be a reasonable.
Well, going back to Tammy's comment, I mean, that's also a good thing. We should make sure that there is some kind of cap if we don't engage the commission. 2 things gotta happen. We have to make sure this township is actually on sound footing, that we have funds that can support that, and we're not being abusive to any additional funding that has come in for the year. But just leave it for a cap, not to exceed something. That's, and we need to all agree on that, whatever, if that's gonna be a cap. So I would maybe recommend that we table this resolution at this time, and try to see if we can come up with a couple formulas that might still work to solve any community concerns. You know, we may have a couple voices that we're active with, there may be other voices out there that, you know, not everybody says anything all the time, but they may be out there thinking about it. So we should come back with something proactive that, that is on sound footing.
Well, I would agree with Tammy's, you do a board policy, and if you set a cap, which you've done by, can't increase by any more than what you would pay your employees for a raise, you've pretty much capped it out there. You're not gonna get a $20,000 increase, which could happen with a commission.
Well,
They may go out
Well,
there
the
and look,
board would
okay,
have to
we're gonna
approve it,
match
though.
you up with the rest of the
White Lake.
townships, you know. Don Green, I think, is 85,000 a year or
Yep.
something. And I think he got a 3% raise, so he's probably closer to 88,000. He's got half the number of population in his community, but that's what they pay. We have an opportunity, we're paying, we know what the salaries are right now. The public can look at that on a daily basis or anytime they want. You know that at a time when the budget is put forward to put out for compensation or additional compensation to employees, that the 3 elected in-house officials are employees as well. And that has been established. We are employees. And so, get the same amount, so it limits it.
I think we should decide on the commission part. I'd like to take care of the commission part tonight, either yay or nay, and then we can, next meeting, move on to other options, more research, I think just to, let's get this taken care of one way or the other, and then we can always, if we have other options, and now that we can't come back to other options.
well, we could table this and look at the other options, and then decide at the next meeting.
You
that we-
changed this, it's
Discussion.
just a discussion,
Yes,
so you don't even.
we don't
have to
I
care.
table it.
understand that
Take
significance of
control.
that was there could not be a motion to introduce this ordinance tonight.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
that's
there
right.
wouldn't be
This is
anything
just
that, there
discussion.
wouldn't be anything to postpone, I guess you could move to schedule it to further discussion or schedule it for introduction at the January meeting.
Other than the implementation of this in a timely manner to make it go into effect, that would be the only other consideration, but I think we could just end the
That's right, I
discussion.
forgot we did change the
And,
discussion, you're right. Thanks, Gary.
I would offer that, Tammy, if you come up with a couple alternatives that would be reasonable, that we can look at and work that into a formal policy, then we at least have a plan that we can
Right.
present to the community that this is under control.
Yep. Gary?
Just one observation, again, with the commission only being able to meet in odd numbered years, it seems to me that, I don't know how the supervisor or board can act on a budget without knowing. So if you push the possibility of this ordinance be going on the books too far into 2019, it's not gonna, the commission's gonna come in with determinations when you're in the middle of your budget process. I mean, I set the August 1st deadline on purpose because that's the deadline for all department heads to turn in their proposed budgets to the supervisor. And a month later, he gives his proposed budget to the township board. My thinking was, these salary determinations should be in the door in advance of that township budget process starting. So you could take those things into account in your planning. So if you push it too far, you know, then it's gonna make it really tight, or they'll have to provide recommendations that you haven't taken into account in your budget discussions. That would create problems that seems like they'd be unnecessary. So I would suggest that for sure, at your January meeting, you decide whether you're gonna introduce this ordinance or not. Right? If you're gonna introduce it, doesn't mean you have to adopt it. But, you know, to keep the progress going.
All right. We'll move on then.
Good discussion.
I think the discussion, I think, was
No, it's good.
the right way
It's good.
because it pulled out some other alternatives or ideas. Okay, so we're gonna move to the next item, N, budget amendments. This is to add funds to capital improvement annex improvements, due to a roof leak that, caused us to have to almost gut out the, men's bathroom in the annex.
I would move to approve the budget amendment as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported, vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, item 10, need a motion to go into possible closed session to consider acquisition of property and
Do those
also
separately?
do them separately, yes.
You wanna do two separate motions now? So we don't have to come back out and do another one?
Yes,
Okay.
but just do them separately.
Okay.
I would move to go into closed session to consider an acquisition of property.
Support?
Moved and supported, vote please.
I vote yes.
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 Yes, okay.
Do we need to advise the public that we're gonna be?
Another motion?
I would move to go into closed session to discuss confidential township attorney-client privilege communication regarding the transportation authority status and issues.
Support.
Moved and supported, vote please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
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 Right back?
Okay.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I'm in closed session already.
Yes.
Yes.
Good girl.
Motion carries.
All right, so those that don't wanna hang out, this could be a while, so, all right, so it's 8:00. Take 5 minutes to,
I was waiting, I know. You're right, sorry.
I know.
okay, let's see, it's 9:31.
Before I did this colder, I wasn't there.
Where are we? We're back in session. And,
Want to thank everybody for staying?
on that note, we've on
So we
adjournment?
have,
You got a motion to make. Yeah.
so I will move to authorize the township attorney to prepare and, for the clerk to sign an offer to purchase real property as discussed in closed session.
Offers,
Offers.
First plural.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. McDonald? No.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
Yay.